It's no accident that when Yeshua comes to the culmination of his earthly ministry, it's during this time. So the law first lets us know that these are incredibly important, and they shape the destiny of God's people. The Passover sacrifice, which foreshadow and give the fractal of the death of our Messiah. And the first commandments also give the preparation for redemption from Egypt, which also foreshadow and give a fractal of the final redemption. So before receiving any other commandments, they first needed to keep the commandment of redemption. They had to be bought at a price. Passover has clear significance. In fact, Yeshua himself has obligated us to keep the Passover in remembrance of him. Luke 22, verse 19, do this in remembrance of me. When Yeshua said these words, do you think he had in mind a very formal setting set aside on a day of worship that he never had heard of? Partaking of bread the size of a dime or a quarter and drinking some grape juice. In other words, do you think what he had in mind with this is really what has become the Lord's Supper? Well, here you have in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, Yeshua saying to do what? Keep this. Again, what's the this? There was no Lord's Supper. What's the this? These are questions I think that are worth asking, because we continue to see a decline in the relevancy of the church. And we continue to see a church that's growing more and more disconnected from God. Why is that? Why is that? Have we become disconnected perhaps from our roots? And the more we pull away from our roots, the more we're actually pulling away from our God. Okay? And so, while what we may be doing may be with all the best intentions, with all the holy intentions, with all the pious, everything positive you can imagine intentions, it's still good to ask, is this what was really going on? In other words, in order to know what the Bible means for us today, you have got to know what it meant when it was written and to whom it was written to. So ask, what did Yeshua have in mind when he said this? He issues that directive to his disciples within the context of what? The annual Passover celebration. If you go to Passover Seder, you'll see the whole Messianic symbolism and how he's identifying all the components of the Passover Seder with who he is. Rav Shaul, the Apostle Paul, calling him the Passover Lamb and so forth, right? Have you ever heard a phrase similar to this? We speak only where the Bible speaks, silent where the Bible's silent. Something similar to that. Or, well, that's Old Testament stuff, and that's been fulfilled in Messiah. Therefore, we're not obligated to that. It's nice to learn. It helps us get prepared. But we're really only obligated for what's revealed by the Messiah himself in the Gospels and by the apostles, i.e., we're only bound to New Testament kind of stuff. So if the New Testament doesn't talk about it, we don't have to do it, or we don't do it. And if it does talk about it, then that's what we do, right? Heard similar things like that. Let's kind of go with that. And let's pretend the Old Testament has been completely abolished. Let's pretend. It's completely irrelevant. We're going to rip out the first 39 books. You're only going to have 27 books in your Bible. That's all you're responsible for. I've just cut learning down in a way. 39 books gone. You don't even have to know about them. Right? Not even responsible for knowing they existed. And all we're going to do is go by what Yeshua tells us and his apostles. And so he even says, Luke 22, verse 15, I've earnestly desired to eat this Passover with you before I suffer. So in the commandment that he gives to us, do this in remembrance of me, it's not merely the commandment to take a cup and a piece of bread. The specific this that's being referred to is the Passover. and the Seder meal. Because if you've ever been to a Seder, is there any better way to do this in remembrance of me than in the context of the Seder? Right? Because you have like a whole hour and a half where you're focusing nothing on anything but redemption and how redemption is born, how God redeems his people, all of that. That's what you do in remembrance of him. It's far beyond just the cup and the bread. It's the whole package. It's the whole package. And he didn't only take one cup, he shares 4 cups with his disciples. We talked about that last week. Remember, we knew that the 3rd cup was when he said, this is my blood. And we know he didn't drink of the 4th cup, but he had his disciples partake of it because he says he's going to drink of that anew when he returns, right? Because the promise of redemption associated with that 4th cup is the marriage vow. I will be your God. You will be my people. I will be your people. You will be my God. What's said at a marriage? I will be your husband. You will be my wife. I will be your wife. You will be my husband. And so at the marriage supper is when he will partake of that again. Many people in the church will say 1 Corinthians 11 is about the Lord's Supper. Question. You ever seen anyone get drunk off the communion wine? You ever seen anybody walk away from communion going, I can't eat another bite? Because Paul says that. There's some of you getting drunk at this thing, and there's some of you overeating. You've been to a Seder? Can you overeat at a Seder? Oh, yeah. And can you drink too much at a Seder? 4 full cups. Not to mention while you're eating, you can imbibe. Does it not then make more sense what he's talking about? It has nothing to do with the Lord's Supper because he's never heard of that. Then you have the Apostle Paul, 1 Corinthians 11, quoting the Gospels in what are called words of institution. You know, on the night he was betrayed and took bread, took wine. In other words, he's recounting that. And then he says, this is the tradition that was handed to me. And this is what I'm handing to you. And then he says these very powerful words in 1 Corinthians 5, verse 8. Let us keep the feast with unleavened bread. Gee, what feast is he talking about? All of 1 Corinthians is based on Passover. The whole epistle is based on the theme of Passover. So he didn't break just any bread. He broke the unleavened matzah with his disciples. And not just any part of that. At a Seder. Which bread do you break of the unleavened bread? It's called the afikomen. You know, you break it, and then you wrap it up in fine linen, and then you bury it away, and then it comes back later, right? Now do you know why he would say, this is my body? It's going to be broken, pierced, striped, buried, returning. Okay? This is my body. So if we really desire to do this in remembrance of him, we can do no less than the whole this. That's Passover. That's the authentic cup and bread Yeshua came. So, many places that claim to be biblical, are they? Even if we use the standard stub of, we only speak where it speaks. Well, it's speaking. And that's the ironic thing. Those who claim to be so against tradition, unbiblical traditions, are they guilty? Are we guilty of actually having them? So, there's something to think about. Is Passover relevant to the 2015 follower of Yeshua? Is it something relevant to being a disciple? Does the text indicate that? Does the New Testament indicate that? And that's what I always try to bring out for you guys. This idea of its connection. It's this appointment. Remember, the festivals are called in Hebrew Moed or Moedim. Appointments. Literally like appointments. You appointment with your doctor, your dentist, your lawyer. Right? Appointments. He's made an appointment for redemption. He's made an appointment to break the bondage. He's made an appointment to get you through the narrow neck so that your heart and your mind can unite and no longer battle. He's made an appointment to defeat Pharaoh. That's still very much relevant to our lives. So when you come to a Passover Seder, by all means, come broken, come bruised, come addicted, come pouring it all out, laying it all on the table and saying, I'm leaving Egypt today. I am no longer Pharaoh's slave. But don't panic, okay? You learn a little bit at a time. This Passover, you do one thing you didn't do last Passover. You don't have to all of a sudden become Passover gurus and all of that, right? It's progressive revelation. As you learn, you do. Keeping Passover is also not a burden. So don't make it a burden. Remember, it's a connection. It's a connection. It's a beautiful thing. Not a burden. It's a privilege.